Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Kraken, the podcast where we get to know more in-depth creatives, from game developers to musicians to artists and content creators. Today, we're joined by talented singer, musician, and Twitch partnered variety streamer, VVMinerva. Minerva is an amazing talent, and we're excited to get to know her a bit better today. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, Minerva.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, it's
hello.
really cool to get to talk with a lot of people that I enjoy their content, enjoy watching. But before we kind of get more into your content and things like that, the question I always like to start with, the things that I think people can be really curious about when they get to know someone, is why did you click going live? Because there's a lot of different reasons for a lot of different people, but streaming with an active chat and all the things that come with it is a bit different than other forms of making content. So curious why you decided to start live streaming.
Definitely. No, that's a good question. My streaming history is pretty random, actually. I was approached by a coworker of mine. I used to work as a server in a restaurant, and she came up to me one day and was like, "Hey, you play video games, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was telling me about, she worked at like a company that did a lot of gaming stuff. They did a lot of VR mostly, and she wanted to have like a stream, like a streaming team, kind of like a all girl stream team kind of thing. She had this like idea, her and her coworker had this idea, and she was like, you want to be a part of it? We're going to stream, we're going to, pick a game. And I was like, I mean, this sounds like fun. I didn't really know much about Twitch or streaming at all at the time. But I was like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a try. And so we ended up never really streaming. We just kind of ended up hanging out, and like we could never get like a solid group together that was like dedicated to keeping it going. And we would play League of Legends, interesting enough. And so I ended up not streaming, but then kind of still being pulled into this like Twitch world and the idea of streaming, and like, starting to, see more creators and like streamers, and it was just really interesting to me. And I thought, that would be kind of fun maybe to pursue anyway on my own, and my boyfriend encouraged me, and my friends were like, a couple of my friends were encouraging me as well. And so I ended up trying it out. I just randomly, I streamed on my PlayStation the very first time. And I mean, I streamed to like nobody for so long because I didn't really like tell anyone. Like I was just like, I'm just gonna do this, and I don't really know what I'm doing. And so I just was kind of just streaming for myself for a while, and it was just an activity. I was like, I come home from work, I play games anyway, so I might as well just click the go live button and see what happens, see where it takes me. And I ended up, I would meet a lot of cool people, and it kind of like livened up gaming as well. It when you're trying to put on a show almost, right? When you're playing a game, you get more into it, and you're speaking your thoughts out loud, and you're trying to make, it's kind of almost like a new way of experiencing gaming, which was kind of fun. So yeah. So then we just kept at it, and then here we are, full time.
Which is really awesome being able to
the journey.
Yeah, the journey. Looking at kind of like Twitch tracker stats, like you said, it kind of matches up. Like there's a very long time throughout like all of 2019, 5, 6, 7 average for the month. And then in late 2020 and on is when really started seeing a lot of growth and things like that. And I also, as somebody who's streamed and gone through like the various kind of phases on the way up, because everything's just kind of a different phase on the way up. I'm just curious, for me, eventually something just when I was doing certain content clicked for me, and I started like adapting the way I made content that was more situated for me as a creator. I'm curious what that was like for you. Like what kind of like click that kind of changed over from I'm just going to log in and talk and share my thoughts because I'm playing a game anyway, to putting on more of like, a show and making more of the style of content that you make now, which is still playing a game, but obviously a lot more of your personalities there, you doing music. Definitely. And all those sort of things.
Yeah, so I guess when I got laid off from work, when, the height of the pandemic, when things were closing down, I got laid off, and I had a lot more time on my hands, and I figured, let's be more consistent. you know, let's make a schedule. Let's like brand ourselves, give myself a theme, and pour more of myself into this project. So I think once I started consistently setting like a schedule for myself, and like I used to stream like multiplayer stuff, right? I played like Legends, and then I played Overwatch and like Heroes of the Storm and stuff. And I think once I made the shift to more like story-based, like single-player games, I definitely felt like I kind of hit my stride in that way, because it was a lot more engaging. Like it was easier for me to communicate with, you know, chat, and also to make it more entertaining, I think, because I wasn't just so super focused. Like it's good to be immersed, obviously, in the game, but you know, it's easier to like be more, I don't know, theatrical and like funny and stuff when you're playing a single player story game. You know, you're like going through that adventure together. And so yeah, I would say that once, and being consistent, and then finding games. And I mean, I'm still, when I started streaming, I was like, I would say relatively new to, I gamed when I was younger, a little bit, and then I fell out of it throughout like high school and university. I didn't really game at all because I was like super focused in music and you know, other shenanigans. And so I didn't really, you know, play a lot of games. So once I started streaming, it was cool because I had the opportunity to play all these games that I've missed out on, like, you know, all these classic games that everyone loves, and I get to experience them now for the first time and share that experience with a bunch of other people, and that's really fun too. To like learn, I'm learning stuff about myself, patience I didn't know I had for playing. Like I play like a lot of Soulsborne games now, and like I couldn't even imagine in the past. I don't think I ever would have done that on my own. I think being a, you know, streaming, I was like, I like to challenge myself on stream, so I think that's actually, you know, probably makes things more entertaining as well.
Yeah, I think obviously a lot of people feel the passion a person has behind a game, but also even if you're passionate about a game, it doesn't always translate to a good streaming game. I think a lot of people find that you look for what's like popular, or if you don't look at what's popular, you do all these like different people do analytic matrix to go, this is the best game to grow in, without going, what's the best game for what I want to be doing on stream. And it sounds like you kind of found that, because I can look at the hours you've most played games, and I can see a lot of like Call of Duty Warzone back in 2020, whereas the most hours here in the last year, you know, you clocked 204 hours really going, like you said, through Bloodborne. You're 170. You're 179 hours deep currently in your God-slaying adventures in the Lands Between in Elden Ring. So like really
Elden Ring is crazy. It's humbling me. It's very challenging.
Yeah, they're great games. And like you said, if you like to challenge yourself, and that's the sort of content you want to make, and it's a really good thing. So it's really cool to hear about someone finding their game, because I think that's the thing, is just finding the game you can grow quickest in, or finding the game that's the most popular is not always the thing. It's finding that game that also clicks with what you want to be doing, how you want to communicate with chat, with your viewers, and how you want to, like, you know, what you want to be doing on stream.
Absolutely, yeah. Like when you're having fun, when you're into something, like your chat's gonna obviously have more fun too, right? So finding those games that like really, you know, stick with you, that's important for sure.
Yeah, and if you're somebody who likes to challenge yourself, like you said you are, then if you do challenging games, you attract the sort of audience that either wants to be there when you succeed, or who just wants to kick W and lol W when you suffer. Yeah, I mean, it's probably more about the lol dubs, but yeah, they love the suffering.
They do. It's great though.
But it's
I do too, low key, you know.
I mean, that's why I play the game, so people can watch me suffer, and then I watch others play it so I can watch them suffer, or see how they do against things. Like no backseating, but I just like I go, okay, have you gotten there yet? And like, oh no, I haven't been to that area. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to be really intently watching now, because I want to see, you know,
how you react,
how you deal with some of these bosses. Yeah. Speaking about passions and things on stream, obviously, singer in a band, you're a talented musician yourself. You do a lot of music streams. Can you talk a little bit about your musical journey? Because obviously that was something that was probably ongoing before streaming, that you've brought into your streaming.
Totally. I'm so glad that I did bring that into streaming. It's great that you can combine so many of your passions into this like one outlet. So I'm definitely like finding all the ways that I can do that. But yeah, music, Well, I mean, like I was saying, in high school is when I was always really into music, like listening to music, yeah, but I had a few friends that we would jam together regularly, and I started playing acoustic guitar. I took like a year of lessons, and then I wasn't really taking it very seriously, and honestly, to this day, I wouldn't say I'm super passionate about guitar necessarily, but I do love to sing, and so I needed like an outlet. I needed something to complement my voice, obviously, and get the music out there. So, yeah, so I didn't even imagine. I actually kind of fell off of music for a while when I started streaming. And then I think I mentioned it, or maybe I was singing on stream or something like that, and I think someone in chat was like, you should, why don't you play music on stream for us? And I was like, oh, I don't think so. Like, I was very shy about it. I had a hard time, singing in front of an audience. Although in high school, I did do like, we had like roadshow and stuff. So I would perform in that sense. But yeah, I was so nervous. And I ended up doing a music stream, and the feedback was really good. And that was super like motivating and inspiring. And I was like, okay, I should definitely make this like a more regular thing. And then I just, from there, it became a weekly thing, and it's a lot of fun. And then through streaming my music on Twitch, I did meet my former bandmate. I'm actually not in Next Elvis anymore.
Okay.
I ended up having to leave the band. We only got a couple songs out, unfortunately. We had stuff that we were working on, but we just had differences, like personal differences that couldn't really be overlooked. But you know what? That was a really great experience, that I had the opportunity to like wrote my own, like my first original song last year, which was really cool and but scary. But I have been inspired to keep going and write still more of my own music. And I went shopping for guitars today. I'm gonna try and record some stuff, I'm thinking. But yeah, music has always been a big part of my life. Like my dad is a musician as well. He's been in bands all his life, and he retired and he just does his own solo stuff now. He sings. So I guess I get it from him. And so I was definitely raised in like a musical environment, and music's always been like it's always been there for me.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, blending passions, I think at the foremost of Twitch, like if you are cracked at gaming, if you are Shroud, if you are the best FPSer, if you are the person who can beat a Elden Ring without getting hit, like if the main thing that you're bringing is this amazing skill set, obviously just the game can be it for you. But I feel like on Twitch, the cool part is being able to blend those passions, the different things you're into, even if you're just talking about them, or in your case, actually performing music, because at the end of the day, people are there for the streamer. If we all were just photocopies of the same person, if everybody who did Elden Ring did the same basic Elden Ring, then there would be no reason for there to be so many people streaming Elden Ring. But it's reactions are different, but also the personalities and the things, and that way people who share similar personalities or like those traits can find people. So I think it's really cool that we're able to blend this passion for music that's always been kind of part of your life, and make that part of make it part of your stream. And
Absolutely.
Also, and I'll post it here, although obviously these are for when Minerva's live. Minerva has like a list of a kind of a song list of a bunch of different songs.
Yeah, I do mostly covers on my streams. We do music every Friday, so but yeah, it's mostly covers. But I would love to be able to, start playing originals at some point. It's something. It's definitely my next like project for myself, is to push myself musically.
Yeah, and from the list, I posted the list also for anybody who wants to check it. I'll post that for anybody who's listening at home or watching this later on YouTube, because you have a fantastic musical taste.
Oh, thank you.
So just kind of sticking on music for a bit before we get more into it. I always like to talk about inspirations, but I'm just curious about your personal music inspirations. Obviously, you can see a lot of that in the requested songs, but I'm just curious about like what sort of like musical artists have like kind of really inspired you as a creator, whether it be just musically or stylistically.
A lot. My musical interests are very broad and eclectic. I would say like definitely focus on like metal, like hard rock and alternative stuff, but all over the place really. But I would say my favorite band when I was younger was Incubus, and for the longest time I wanted to just be in an Incubus cover band. So, because I just felt like, I loved their music, but I also loved, it's nice to like find songs that are like perfectly in your range where you just feel really good singing them. And like Incubus always had that where I was like, I feel like this just suits my voice very well. And even when I used to do like, I would go, my friends would do karaoke and I would always pick like an Incubus song, or you know what, or I'd pick a 3 Days Grace song, which is random. But so yeah, Incubus was definitely a huge like musical inspiration for me. And then recently though, like now that I've kind of been exploring the idea, well, Next Elvis was a metal band, and so that was like my first time singing metal. Not that I don't, obviously I sing along to a lot of metal songs, but that was like my first time creating metal music. So I have been inspired by there's a lot of more female like metal musicians out there, especially screamers, which I never like, doing like those harsh like gutturals and like crazy like fry screams and stuff. And you never really thought that was possible. I don't know. I just never really considered that being like a thing that girls could do. And then now seeing like, Tatiana from Ginger and like she's a huge inspiration for me. She's got killer vocals. So it's nice to see like that happening more, and that's super inspiring. And, it's pushing me to like want to try that out for sure. I've been working on it a little bit, but it's scary. I don't want to do it wrong,
Yeah.
Hurt my voice.
Yeah, it seems like there'd be a little more vocal conditioning that needs to go into it when you're gonna do things like those guttural sounds and those screams. But yeah, metal music, all music obviously have a wide array of talented female leads and things like that. But I think a lot of people, when they think of metal, they think just of like they think of like just like men like gutting it out. But no, there's been like over the last like decades, there's just been so many really amazing female led like metal bands across all the different types. Like you have some like death metal, doom metal, like all these different types of metal have amazing female leads. So it's really awesome that you're able to kind of like pursue that.
Yeah, I think people are surprised too, like when they're listening to it and they don't know that it's a woman, and then they and they're like, oh, and then they find out later on that it's a girl, and they're like, what? Like it definitely surprises people. But yeah, no, it's awesome. And you know what, streaming with music and streaming, like it's been a really great way for me to like push myself and like learn. Like I've come such a long way just from streaming music. Like I can noticeably tell that there's a big difference in how I'm playing guitar, like chords that I wouldn't even like, I was just like would avoid playing. I was like, I'm just not going to even play this song because these chords aren't possible. And now they're like second nature to me. So it's cool how it's like helping me to like progress and get better. And I mean, I was never like classically trained or anything. Like I never had lessons for my voice. I've always just kind of been winging it. So I've learned a lot in that sense, like on how to, I'm still learning and developing like how to sing properly, how to breathe, you sing from your diaphragm and not your chest. And like, for me, I didn't do that for so long. And so I'm trying to incorporate that and like make that a habit for myself. And yeah, so it's been a really cool process.
Yeah. And that's another thing that honestly really makes Twitch and live streaming in general unique is, like you said, you're growing a lot, and doing it on stream, you're growing a lot because you're able to do it because the people who are there, if you go to a concert, you pay a cover charge, you don't really know the band. If it's a local band, you're still kind of expecting the music to be at a certain level, a certain like quality. But the people who are tuning in on Twitch are there because they're interested in the process. Like they're excited, especially the long-term viewers are excited to be able to go, oh, you've gotten so much better, or oh, that's really cool, or like it's a very cool encouraging audience. It's like being able to practice in your garage, except for to a much larger amount of people than would fit in your garage when you're
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
It brings a lot of people into it, really kind of help encourage that. So we've talked a little bit about like music and stuff, and about the games that you play on stream. The other thing I want to kind of touch on about your stream for people who may not have watched it is we've had Melzy on the podcast in the past, and I'm a really big advocate of co-streaming and how beneficial the community is when you don't isolate yourself. And obviously there's VVMinerva. You and Melzy have done a lot of co-streams. So if you just want to talk about your experience with co-streaming and stuff like that, because personally to me, I think co-streaming and collaboration and interaction is really where Twitch people find a lot more of their growth than the standard idea, which is to isolate yourself and just look at what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I think so I never really entertained the idea of doing co-streams in the past just because it made me nervous. Even though collaborating is awesome, but yeah, in the past I was just always like worried that, you know, it wasn't going to be a good match, or like, you know, being overwhelmed by like all the things, like, you know, your chat and you're trying to play a game and your chat, and then you're wait, I need to mute before I talk to my chat because I don't want to, like, you know, impose on her, like on their stream or whatever. And so I was kind of just like, it made me anxious for a while. And then when obviously I met Melzy, and she was super cool, and we kind of like clicked immediately. And when she proposed the idea of doing a co-stream, I was like, you know what, I would love to, and give it a try. And we ended up doing it so it's very open. You know, we are on open mic the whole time. We're sharing our communities. We have both chats open. Honestly, if we could merge our chats, that would be like even more ideal. But yeah, so having like that takes a lot of the edge off, and it makes it more of like a whole experience, like, and the meshing of communities, you know, that I feel like that is really I feel like it's really like a good way of going about it. And so yeah, my perspective of collaborating and co-streaming has like completely changed, because I'm definitely more open to doing that. And just like, it's nice to find the people that you click with, and then you find it's streamers like in other, you know, community members. Like we have a lot of like similar community members now, and it's just like cool that we all get along and like support each other, and you know, there's no like tension in that way. It's all just like love and support, and it's cool because everything's like open, you know.
Yeah, no, I really do know that it opens up a lot of things. I mean, for lack of like, for a more mainstream option, obviously, there's a reason things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for example, works really well. If you like one thing and that's all you like, you know, if you're a hardcore VVMinerva watcher and you can only watch Twitch like 2 hours a week, and those 2 hours are there, that's awesome. But it also opens it up to like, okay, I really like Minerva. Minerva's playing this game with Melzy. Oh, Melzy has this sort of like similar vibe, because they're getting to know him through watching through your stream. I can check them out, and like it expands again the universe of chats mixing together, people mixing together, and being able to discover other people. And it kind of, to me, collaboration is such an important part, because it's really easy, I think, when people are small and they're growing, to think this is a competitive space, meaning it's competitive in everybody else out there who's streaming is your competitor, versus a competitive space, which just means you need to work on yourself, set your own goals, and try to make your stream the best it can be. And because if you look at the biggest streamers and large streamers, you look at that are doing well, they're almost always having different people come on their stream and go on each other's streams, because people want to see that. People love, I love
that.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And it goes back to, old TV tropes. I mean, crossover episodes are a thing for a reason. Like, I can remember being a kid and be like, the Jetsons are on Scooby-Doo, what the, you know?
Yeah, to like, and yeah, diversify your content is always important too. And I just love to see like streamers like being supportive and welcoming to other streamers, rather than, it is like, yes, it's competitive, but like, it's nice to not see everyone as competition and more of like collaborators, like, you know, we can learn from each other kind of thing. And it's been cool, and it's nice because yeah, Melzy and I can just, you know, we're just being ourselves, and we're just like kind of hanging out together, right, with an audience, and so it's a little bit different, right? We still are talking to chat, but it's a little bit less chat focused and more just like on our interactions with the game and stuff. And so that's a nice like way to diversify the content as well, like just like a new viewing experience where we're just having funny moments. And yeah, it
brings out a whole different part of your personality, because the personality that is
totally
when you're the entertainer versus the personality when you're like interacting with a with a friend, and to pull some things I don't usually pull out a chat, but community, not competition, is something a friend of mine, Reishi, said, and I truly believe that. My dad always said a rising tide raises all ships. So
yeah, I love that.
yeah, I think it's really, really good to see, and I think a lot of people who are getting into streaming or just interested about the streaming process to know, like, collaboration's hard. You can't obviously collaborate with everybody. You have to find those people who mesh, but when you do, it really can bring a lot out. We'll talk a little bit about gaming. Now we talked about everything leading up to it, but I want to know how your experience with Elden Ring has been. I think last time I peeked in on a break during the subathon, you're around like level 110. I think you're deep into the past the end game at this point. So I'm just curious how the process through Elden Ring, which I know you've already done Bloodborne, but obviously Elden Ring is a much different experience, yet the same. Yeah,
that game is overwhelming. It's amazing though. I've been loving it. I for a while it was going pretty well. Like, I didn't feel like I was struggling too much. I definitely have problems leveling up. I actually recently learned that I've been like kind of leveling up my sword wrong this whole time. So, you know, it's a learning experience, but no, it has been a lot of fun, but it's definitely been challenging. This weekend, I'm at like end game bosses kind of right now, and it took me like an entire stream and I didn't even beat the boss I was stuck on. So, and then I finally beat that guy, moved on. Now I'm just kind of at the point in the game where it's like boss after boss. So, which I like that, honestly, because I much prefer fighting bosses than fighting just like the trash mob. But, yeah, so I had a similar experience last night streaming fighting a boss and it taking me a whole stream. So it's been a very humbling experience as of late because I go from playing Bloodborne. I did really good at Bloodborne. Sekiro pretty good too. The last boss it was a whole other thing, but for the most part it was pretty easy. But no, this has been totally different. But I think it also stems from me just being bad at leveling up because I can't be trusted with runes. If I have too many runes, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna lose them, and that's just the way it is. So like I pretty much only level up when I fight bosses, and then I just have to level up after that and not hold on to any extra ones because they will be lost. I've definitely lost quite a few runes and sacrificed a few level ups in that way. But the game is beautiful. I love the open world. And like I said, I love the challenge. So even though I am taking entire streams to get through a boss, it's still a fun experience. And I know chat loves it because they love to watch me suffer and yell and rage. I'm a little bit of a rager, as you may know.
I was there for the stream, the entire stream. That was the 2 Crucible night fight.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was real. Oh, the duo fights. Oh my god, I think I blocked that out of my memory. I actually forgot about that one.
I had to leave, do chores, eat dinner, and I came back and I pulled your stream back up and it was still the Crucible and I was like, oh no.
I'm still here. Yeah. They can't get rid of me that easily. Yeah, no, it's fun though. It's all part of the experience, I guess. I definitely make things harder for myself, though, I realize, because I'm, like, not leveling up as much, and I'm also not really using summons. Like, I will use summons it took me a while to, like, even understand summoning and, like, getting a good summon and leveling it up and everything, so I didn't use them for a really long time, but now, my whole theory is, if it's a double boss or if they're summoning, then I'll summon. But if it's just me, if it's like a good old fashioned duel, then I don't, I want to do it myself, because that makes me just feel better. Like, there's nothing wrong, of course, with summoning, but for me personally, I'm like, it's just going to be you and I until one of us goes down. It's probably going to be me a bunch of times, so that's okay.
Well, that's one of the critiques that people have about Elden Ring and From Software games who don't really play them. And I know it's made a little bit harder by the gatekeeping community that says you have to do it one way. Is From Software games do not have a difficulty slider. You can't put it on easy mode. However, From Software is really good if you level yourself, or if you do this, especially with Elden Ring, I feel like summons are kind of like that. Summons, there's different powers of summons, and if you want a bit less of an intense experience, summons are there for you. There's items you can get to make Margit easier. Like, it doesn't have, just like it doesn't have quest markers, it doesn't have a difficulty slider, but there's definitely things in the game, and I feel like summons are like that. So somebody who really wants to push themselves and challenge themselves, like, completely can go at it with like, I'm not summoning anything. I'm going to do this completely on my own, and that's an amazing experience, and that's their experience. Someone who's like, hey, making this summon super powerful makes this game a bit more bearable for me so I can get through it. That's great for them. So I think that's where I've always viewed summons too, is like it's a power slide mechanic. And I think people who don't know From Software and aren't familiar with the games, because they are intensely difficult, they are deliberately difficult, true, but it's because there's mechanics in the game that to make life easier on yourself. Although you did mention Sekiro, which is still one of my favorite games of all time. The power creep between everything in Sekiro and the final boss is
oh my god.
It's intense.
It was a rude awakening.
Yeah.
It was great though. But that's a really, really good point. They give you the tools. There's definitely lots of tools that you can make your life easier for. Although, I mean, leveling up, it still requires, I feel, a little bit, of a grind, more time to level up.
It's definitely
it's still there. And that's why I'm like, I'd rather just keep fighting the boss until I kill it, because I'm like, I'm not just gonna roam around and fight things to get runes that I'll probably just end up losing anyway. so I just power through it. Yeah, perseverance. I definitely get complimented on that in chat often. They're like, wow, it's my stubbornness, but they're like, wow, you really don't give up, and they're like, wow, your patience is incredible. I would have broken my controller by now. And I'm like, just completely like stone cold killer, like unaffected. Well, maybe a little. I mean, I yell a little bit, but
affected during,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
well, that's the other magic about a From Software title, or a really hard title, is so in my youth I used to run cross country, and then I ran marathons in my youth. The grind to train your body for all the time it takes to run a marathon, to get in shape, to be able to handle 26 miles, the pain and perseverance you go through during it, for the elation, for this moment of elation at the end. Or people who climb mountains say the same thing. There's like super challenging things. You push your body, your mind, everything to this like limit to get this moment of elation of this, I did it, and to share that with people. And From Software, why I've always loved their games is it kind of encapsulates that. Super, super hard bosses, you will grind forever. You'll grind your skill set for that moment, for that giant dopamine hit that you can only get after putting yourself through hell.
It's so worth it, though. It's such a good feeling. That's why we keep coming back to these games, right? Chasing that high, that post-boss high, for sure.
Chasing that post-boss high. And again, that's what I think makes them really great Twitch games. Because again, people delight in the suffering, but they also delight in the accomplishment. And then as the streamer, you also get not just the bonus of everybody tech W'ing you all the way through, failing after failure after failure, but you also get everybody
cheering for you,
pogging out when you get that victory, for sure.
Sometimes they cheer me on. Sometimes, sometimes it's laughter at my struggles. Sometimes they're like, you got this, and there's like the whole chant and chat, and it's great. Motivating.
So obviously you do a lot of like soul-storing games. You also done things like Hollow Knight and stuff like that. I'm just curious, kind of staying on the games topic for a little bit. Do you have your sights set on other games currently, or do you kind of pick the next game after you've defeated the one you're on? Because obviously there's still a decent amount of Elden Ring left, but you're kind of getting to that point where you are in the boss after boss, that kind of end game. So have you looked about what game is coming next, or do you kind of figure that out after you've like closed the chapter on the game you're playing?
So I plan pretty far and ahead, actually. I have a rough outline of like the games I'm going to be playing for the rest of the year. Not that that's going to be 100% what I'm doing, but I like to have kind of themes. We move with the seasons, and I feel like everything kind of brings about a new like vibe and theme. even like in my life, and so like I like to apply that to gaming as well. So yeah, I want to, I like to have like little themed months or whatever. So, winter's your cozy games, and spring's coming. Well, we're in spring. I'm a little Elden Ring has kind of derailed me a bit, but yeah, I would like to. I haven't played a lot of sci-fi games, so probably gonna dip into like maybe Mass Effect and Metroid Dread. I usually like to have more than one game at a time, so I usually like to do like 2 games plus my music streams. Just because I don't know, variety is important. I don't want to like get burnt out on whatever I'm playing, and it's just nice to like switch it up for me. So like right now I'm playing Elden Ring, of course, but I was mixed in Tiny Tina's. Yeah, seasonal content though is super fun. It helps me like kind of because I'm overwhelmed with like the amount of games that is available and like all the ones that I want to play. So it kind of helps me to like narrow it down and kind of just be like, okay, these are your games options that fit into this theme for this summer or whatever, and so we can pick from there. And so it does, it's a little bit flexible, but I try to like stay within the theme. So yeah, I have pretty much it all planned out for the rest of the year. But I do like horror games, so I want to be able to mix in more horror throughout the year, not just obviously at like Halloween time. And so that, and I love platformers. So yeah, my springtime sci-fi games are definitely going to be Mass Effect, and I think Metroid Dread I'm going to give a try. I haven't played any of the Metroid games, but it looks pretty good.
Dread's really a return to form for Metroid, for the platforming style of Metroid, because obviously there's the first person Prime games. As a huge fan of Metroid, I highly recommend. Dread's a fantastic. Probably a single stream, depending. It's about 9 hours of just really, really fun content, though.
Sweet. It's 9 hours, you said?
It could be more, it could be less, depending on you play. I think
it's usually always more for me.
Yeah, I think, and my playthrough was off. I'll admit my playthrough was off stream, so I think for me it was just like a solid like day off, 10 hour grind. So I think if it was on stream, it'd probably be double that, because there's a lot more obviously with streaming.
Yeah. Gaming on stream is a lot different than gaming solo. Everything takes longer, and your focus is divided between a few things, so sometimes stuff takes a little bit longer for you to get the hang of.
Right, and you want to do things in a more entertaining manner. At least for me, I always will put myself in more precarious situations in a game when I'm streaming it than when I'm trying to just
take the risks that you normally wouldn't.
Yeah.
Or do just like silly stuff that will probably get you killed in the game, but you do it anyway for the content.
Right. For the pog tent, so I get the pogs if I don't fuck it up, but most of the time I do. But yeah, I think taking a seasonal approach, that's really, really smart and a good thing. And I think planning obviously is something that that's why I kind of wanted to bring it up, because I do know from watching your streams and stuff that there does seem like there's a lot of planning that goes into it, because creating content can be very hard when you just wing it. And a lot of people can wing it and still find success. I'm not saying there's no success to winging it, but planning it obviously gives you an idea. You can't plan like every hour of a stream, but knowing the games you're going to play, or knowing like a focus and things like that, I think makes it a lot easier to like engage with the content itself and with chat.
Yeah, organization helps keep me, like, I need to be organized, and it really helps keep me focused and on track. So definitely need to apply that to stream, just so I know what I'm doing at what time, and it just like helps me be less anxious about it when I have a rough plan, even though I can't really plan because nothing ever goes according to plan, I find. Right. So you kind of have to be easygoing, but having an outline is super important. But yeah, I honestly, my entire life really like changes seasonally. Like it's so it just makes sense for my gaming sessions, I guess, to move seasonally as well.
Yeah, and for me, I found planning. I basically try to plan what I call the core of my stream, which is planning for YouTube content, because that's where my focus kind of shifted, is to wanting to grow YouTube and being able to go into stream going, okay, I know this is one thing I'm doing today, and this is the thing that is going to be the core that's going to be pulled out to be edited. Everything else, like, will be what it is, but having that plan makes it a lot easier for me to not have to go back through hours of footage and go, well, where's the YouTube video in this? And kind of the reason,
Absolutely.
I bring up planning and YouTube's is I do know you have a YouTube channel, and I'm just kind of curious, because as content creators, there's obviously a lot of mercurial things in the air. People are like, YouTube's working on their own streaming service and this, but there is this huge importance of diversifying content. So I'm curious about YouTube. Is it something you make videos when you can for? Is it something that you're focused on growing? I'm just kind of curious about your content creation, not just on Twitch, but on like YouTube or Instagram or any of these other kind of content creation spaces.
Yeah, YouTube is actually something I really want to pursue more of. I have lots of ideas for videos and just pretty much need to like start putting them into action. I think the first thing I want to do though is make music like covers like for YouTube, make whole like music videos essentially so that people can listen to my music when I'm not streaming as well, because I definitely get a lot of like, you know, questions about that if I have stuff available like on Spotify or YouTube or whatever. So I think that's something that I would like to pursue first. I mean, yeah, growing my YouTube channel is a priority. I enjoy video editing. I do monthly like highlight videos right now, just something manageable because I didn't have a lot of experiences like editing and everything. And so I set a goal for myself that I would try and put one video out a month. I try to set really like reasonable goals for myself because I can just get overwhelmed very easily. And then, you know, disappointed in myself when I don't live up to like the crazy expectations I might set. So yeah, I was like, okay, one video a month seems good, especially at the time I had lots going on with my band, right? So I was kind of doing other stuff. But now that I'm not, I can do music stuff, I'm thinking, for YouTube as well. And yeah, just like other things here and there. Like I have a few ideas. I just have to actually do it. And I find it the hardest thing for me is to like get going, like to find that motivation to just like, well, you got to just do it, rip the Band-Aid off. And then once I get into the groove of things, I get into it. But it just like takes me, I have a very hard time like focusing on a task and like being like, okay, you just have to do this and not anything else right now. I think my problem is though in the day I'll be like, okay, tomorrow's my day off and I'm gonna do this, and this, right? I set too many tasks for myself and then I just like, I'm like, I don't know what to start with, and so I just do none of them. So I'm trying to be a little bit more strict with myself. It's hard being like a full-time streamer. If that's your job, you are your own boss, so you do have to have like a degree of self-discipline that I struggle with, but I'm working on. And you know what, it's cool because I've been growing a lot as a person through streaming because it's forcing me to do these things that I struggle with in the past. And so yeah, in social media I've always been really bad at. I really didn't use social media at all for so long. Never had Twitter, like didn't really use Instagram. And then when I started streaming, obviously I didn't post on social media at all. And you know, over time, as you watch other streamers and you know, you start developing your stream and you realize, okay, I think it's kind of my job to be, well, I don't know if it's necessarily legitimate, but there is an expectation that you kind of need to be everywhere. You know, on all these like social medias, like you need to be posting on Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and TikTok now and everything. And it's so I'm trying, but it's hard. It's hard for me to be consistent.
It's,
you know,
it's overwhelming as a content creator. We are producers, managers, talent, like the list goes on of all the jobs. And obviously the dream is to get to be a big enough content creator one day that maybe you can give somebody money to take on those roles. But there's a very long period of time that is, you know, you're all those different roles. And it is overwhelming, kind of like you mentioned, like having all these things to do, so many things to do, overwhelming, and then getting none of them done. I've found the same is true. Is like the pressure to be on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram, maintaining your Discord, making YouTube videos, streaming. Too. And then just like, it's this list. And I had to do this, a similar thing I did with a lot of other stuff, because I also wasn't updating my stream, because I was like, here's the list I made of 118 things I want to change about my stream. Well, I don't have time to do all 118, and so none of them got done. And I eventually had to be like, let's prioritize, let's do 2. I kind of took a new approach where I was like, okay, Twitch is decent. I'm still working on Twitch. I can maintain Twitch. Okay, let's work on YouTube, because when I was trying to do all of them, basically nothing was happening with any of them, because like there's just so, yeah, like you said, there's so many out there, and you're like, okay, yeah, I need to, and they're different. Engaging with people and posting tweets that they actually want to engage with is different than pictures they want to engage with, is different than videos, is different than live streams, and it's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's very time consuming for sure. And also, but like you need to make sure that you're taking that time to like step away from social media at the same time, because you don't want to get burnt out. And, you know, just even for your mental health, I find sometimes like social media can just be so overbearing. You know, it's hard on the mind. And so, you know, there's, you know, the expectation for myself, you know, you need to be, you know, everywhere all the time and posting and like being up to date. But then, you know, also on the other hand, I'm like, okay, but no, you need to take care of yourself. You need to make sure you're stepping away, especially when you know, you sit in front of your computer or whatever for X amount of hours. And so it's, yeah, there's a lot of, it's nice to distance yourself from technology when you can. But when it's your job to be online all the time, it can be hard to like not feel guilty about doing that, you know, or like, you know.
Yeah, there's a layer of FOMO to it that I found as well, where it's like,
yeah,
oh, if I disconnect, then I'm going to miss out on this or that, or I'm going to not see this or that. Like, yeah, and it's hard, because what you're talking about is something I'm glad you talked about, because that's where like I kind of like roll the podcast into the first time I have someone on also, is the taking care of your physical, mental, and emotional health can be hard as a creator, because like you just said, there's a pressure to be on Discord, to be on Twitter, be everywhere at once, and always be to a certain level accessible. And that's where support networks come in. And you'd mentioned earlier in the podcast, your partner, you know, your boyfriend, in terms of being there and supporting you, which is great, because I think support networks are key. People in your life that can say, hey, please stop, please slow down. Not just encourage you, but also let you know, hey.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not afraid to be like,
yeah,
you've been on your phone for an hour, like, what are you doing? Like, you have, you know, you had plans today. I always tell him to like, okay, if you know, make sure get out of bed, like make sure I'm doing this, like, you know, call me out on that stuff, because yeah, it's easy to get just like sucked in, you know, trapped in that world of social media and stuff, and then, you know, the time passes and you're like, ah, I was supposed to do something.
Yeah, and when you're not taking time for your loved ones, for your friends, and yourself, like, yeah, that's when I think a lot of streamers obviously end up hitting these like big walls of like burnout and stuff, because everything is that, and that's, you know, it can take over. So yeah, support networks are huge. Like you said, disconnecting is huge, but giving yourself permission to disconnect can be hard. It's definitely true of the content creation game, because you are your own boss. It's not like you can leave work for 2 days or even for a vacation and come back and have like someone at work fill you in on like what you missed, and, you know, hey, we took care of this. You take like 4 days off and you're coming back, and like there's 4 days, you know, worth of work, because it's all on you.
Yeah, exactly. It's I always say that it's like a 24/7 job, really. Like, you don't really ever stop working, because even when you're like, it's always just kind of on your mind. Like, you're always just thinking about it, or at least I am anyway. I'm all, you know, thinking, if I'm not doing stuff for it, you know, I'm thinking that I should be doing something for it. You know, there's always the expectation of doing more and whatnot, or just like, you know, in your mind, like, oh, I need to do this, or I should be doing this, or whatever. So I just feel like there's really never rest, and that's okay. Like, I mean, I love it, and I would not trade it for anything. I'm very grateful that I have this to be my job, and that I get to combine all of my hobbies and my passions into something. But yeah, I definitely think it's important. I try to, you know, if I need to take a day off, like, I try not to be guilty about it. I try not to be, you know, apologizing, because I find I do that a lot, and they're like, don't apologize, because it's okay to take breaks, and you're human, you need them. And, you know, taking breaks helps you to make better content, I think, because it helps you to be, you know, to unwind and see, you know, other things outside of yourself and your stream that can inspire you and keep you going.
Yeah, it's really important. It's content creation, and the people who love content creation, you're always on. I will be out on a hike, see something, and then it's I'm typing it in the notepad of my phone for like later, or, you know, I mean, even just taking time off and having something exciting happen and being able to come back and be like, oh my god, this thing happened is like it's a never off sort of thing, but it's also like you said, it
Yeah.
keeps you fresh, keeps you like
Yeah.
engaged.
So
Also
it's a good thing too.
keeps you emotionally and mentally happy, which again, a lot of people forgo their mental health, and also a lot of people I feel like forgo their emotional health because it's easy to get wrapped up in all of your gratification and everything coming from the content and kind of lose sight of like taking
Yeah.
care of yourself. So it's good that you do
Yeah.
that and have people in your life that make sure that you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty good at recognizing in myself like when I'm starting to feel like symptoms of burnout, or just even like general feelings of like, unworthiness or whatever, things like that. When I can sense when I'm starting to kind of decline, my mental health is declining. And so I'm pretty good at like being able to stop myself nowadays and just be like, okay, you need to take a step back. It's okay, do some self-care, do something for yourself, go outside. Yeah, it's a learning process, but I'm getting better at doing that and making sure that I'm taking care of my mental health and emotional health and all that.
And another thing I like to kind of bring up in the kind of the sphere, because I feel like a lot of us in the content creation sphere, to varying degrees, have this, which is the imposter syndrome, but basically the feeling like what we have could go away at any moment, or maybe we don't necessarily deserve the things that we've worked for. Like, oh my god, one day I'm going to be gone for 2 days and my audience is going to realize they don't really like me and I'm just going to have no one viewing. Like these like self-doubt things that kind of come with imposter syndrome, I feel like I've talked to creators who are huge, I've talked to creators who are starting out, I feel like it's a consistent through line that everybody feels it to some degree. I'm just curious if you felt that, and if you have, how you kind of like deal with processing that everything you have is based on like work and yourself and your content, and not based on just like luck, and it's not just like an imposter thing.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that, and more so in the past. Like I said, I'm definitely working on that, but it's definitely still there. It creeps up on you. Imposter syndrome, yeah, I guess when I start feeling like I'm comparing myself too much to other people, that's a problem. And yeah, when I'm feeling like, for example, I took a break earlier in, was it April? Yeah, in April, I took a week off, and I was like super nervous to take a week off. It had been a year since the last time I had taken time off, and it was the first time I had taken a break that long since being, partnered and going full time. So yeah, I was super paranoid that, I was gonna lose a bunch of viewers. Like people were just gonna like forget about me in the week that I'm gone. They're gonna be like, a few days are gonna pass and they're like, oh, why have I been wasting all my time here in this stream? Like, let me just do something else or whatever. But I know that that's not true, because none of these people that come to my streams would be giving me their very precious time. They wouldn't be there. They wouldn't be supporting me. They wouldn't be encouraging me. Like there's literally no reason. There's nothing like motivating them to do that other than that because they want to be there and because they do truly like me and my content and our community and what we have together. And so I just always remind myself like it's almost insulting to my community to think that they're going to like leave me, that that they don't care anymore because they give so much of their time and and monetarily supporting me so I can keep doing this, that like they wouldn't be doing that if they didn't genuinely really feel like they wanted to, because they all are autonomous people with their own thoughts and opinions, and no one's convincing them to do that. That's what they genuinely want to do. And so I just remind myself of that, and that always makes me feel really good, because I'm like, okay, I'm doing something right, and they're there for me, and I need to just like it's like when people compliment you and you like deflect it. It's like, just take the compliment, like own your self-worth, like being confident is super important, I think, for streaming. And like even if you're just faking it, because I mean we all definitely have those days where you just have to put on a brave face, right? But and yeah, it's tough to deal with though, imposter syndrome, because if you let it stew too long, it can really take a toll on you and just make you feel like you're not doing anything right, you know, like you're not good enough or you're not doing the right things. And yeah, I just try to really, and apart from that, like obviously, yeah, recognize that my community is there for me, and you know they wouldn't be wasting their time if they didn't genuinely really like it there. But also like for myself, I think that also is stemming from like insecurities within myself. So I always try to take a step back, maybe journal about it. I do like a lot of like divination and like just like self-affirming practices. So, and that helps me to like be centered and just like kind of come back to like, okay, I'm worthy of this, you know, I'm doing my best, I am who I am, and that is good enough, and that is fine, you know, like just come back to that always when you start slipping away from that.
Yeah, and I think that two things you said there are really at the core of it. One is time's the most valuable thing a person has, and if they're
Absolutely.
taking any of that to spend it with us, obviously there's a reason for that. And the other thing though is obviously a lot of imposter syndrome, I feel personally, and things like that does come from these kind of internal insecurities that we all carry that get extra highlighted when our lives, or at least a portion of our lives, are you know being broadcast out to the world. So it's really easy to like lose sight of that. So I think, yeah, like you said, you do divination and journaling. I do a lot of like self-reflecting and meditation also. I think it's really good because trying to figure out why, like you said, what is it about you that feels, because at the core that's what it is. What is it of you that feels unworthy of this situation, the adoration, or the, you know, just the friendships and stuff that, you know, are coming along.
Yeah, meditation is amazing. I think it's important to be like to have that self-awareness and just like dive a little bit deeper into your mind and feelings and like not push them away, but like let yourself feel them and like process them and just accept them and then move past them if you need to, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that you had brought up a little bit ago that I want to kind of circle back to is like, you know, what, you know, when you take time off, and of course people are still there, and like it's hard to look at it because X amount of people might fall off if you, depending on how much time you take away and things like that, because there are some people who might just be peripherally like getting to know the community, and because it's not their follow. But like you said, the core is there. I myself am I've been moving from a dedicated single game stream to adding in more variety. So obviously there's a drop off there. So for me, it's always been, and I've had to have some time off from illnesses. It's remembering that, yes, I had 120 people maybe watching me when I do this content, and when I do this content or I'm away for a while, it's 60 people. But instead of going, oh my gosh, when I do something else, 60 people went away, I can't do something else, it's 60 people, which is a lot of people. If you start thinking about 60 people sitting in your living room, like if they're over watching me do stuff at my home, 60 people aren't going to fit back there. And trying to take stock of like the appreciation of the people who are there, versus worrying about the loss or worrying about how many viewers someone else has. Big quote, it's a Teddy Roosevelt quote, but it's a really important quote. I always like, I have certain quotes that I always kind of reaffirm myself, which is comparison is the thief of joy, basically meaning like,
so true.
If I go, oh my god, so and so grew, instead of just being happy like, oh god, this cool streamer that I just met blew up and they're like bigger than me after 3 months, or going, oh, I'm bigger than so and so, like if you start, it's comes wrapped up in what they're doing, and you lose sight of like your joys, your growth, your personal like journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such a good point. And yeah, that's why I'm like, whenever I'm starting to compare myself to other people, I'm like, okay, what are they doing that I'm not doing? Like, you know what, why are, you know, that whole like rhetoric is super unhealthy. And that's a great point about, yeah, the people who stayed, there's always going to be those core people. And honestly, even 20 people, when you really like think about it, that's a lot of people that are, you know, just there to support you. And so I try to be grateful for no matter what my viewer count is, even though, yeah, of course we're always striving for growth, but I'm always just trying to be grateful for the people who show up and are there and support me, no matter what that number is. And yeah, and even the comparisons, yes, with like other streamers, but like you were saying with your content, like comparing your content, but like, you know, switching games and like experiencing that drop off, it kind of almost feels like, okay, I gotta like I'm starting over again in a way, right? But yeah, I think that as long as you're having fun, I feel like that should always be the like number one priority. Have fun with what you're doing. So if you are burnt out on a game, even though it's super successful, it's okay to switch it up. And as that's what's most important, because then you're gonna attract a new audience again. Like, it does feel, of course, like a little bit like starting over, and like, you have to new growth again, but there's always going to be that new growth, I think. And as long as you're being true to yourself and you're having fun.
Yeah, and
enjoying your content.
Passion comes through more than anything else. If I am playing a game I utterly hate playing, people are going to feel that I hate playing. If I'm playing a game that I love but I'm kind of burnt out on, they're going to feel the burnout. No matter how big my smile is, no matter how excited I can make my voice, at the end of the day, it's not a edited video. It's going to come through, and people feel that. And it can feel a little like starting over, but at the same time, I started with like 2 viewers.
Same. Me too.
So like it's still a
absolutely.
bigger core audience that is, and I have all of the lessons I've learned from streaming. But kind of the reason I brought up single game versus variety is, it's a double-edged sword. Growing in a single game is sometimes quicker, or you give a more dedicated fan base because everybody knows what you're doing. So it's easier to become a staple in that category. Then it has the double-edged sword of branching out. You get X amount of people who are like, why are you not playing this game anymore? You yourself being more of a variety streamer, variety has the downside of, it can be harder to grow in variety because it fluctuates the games you're playing, things like that. Obviously, you have a lot of theming to the games you play and the style of games you play, which helps. So I'm just curious about your experiences in for anybody who's listening or curious in the growth phase in variety, because once you get to a certain point with variety, the audience is there, your community is there, and you can just switch it up and it's a bit easier. But like in the earlier phases, like I'd say the 3 viewers, 1 viewer to like 20 viewers, it can be like, I think, a scarier, more mercurial thing. So I'm just kind of curious your experiences with that.
Yeah, especially when you're like getting to that point where you're like, okay, my average is higher, I can apply for partner maybe soon, and then you put a lot more weight into the games you're playing and like what numbers those are going to generate and everything like that. I do feel like I've reached a point where I can change it up, and I still have those people that are there for me at the end of the day, and not necessarily the game that I am playing. So I do feel a little bit more liberation in like changing the game up and like, trying new things, and even if they're completely different from anything I've ever played before. But I knew from the beginning that I wasn't going to be able to be a streamer that could play one game, because I just simply am not like that. I need variety. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. And I knew from the beginning that I was like, I can't stay locked into one game, because I knew that was a very real thing, right? When you start playing one game consistently for a while and people come specifically for that content, and when you change it up, they go away. And I just always kind of was like, as I was saying before, when I was getting, started and being more consistent streaming, I was doing single player story games. So, once that game ends, we had a new story game. So I think, when you're playing certain games, like multiplayer stuff, like that's how I started streaming, was doing multiplayer stuff, which puts you more into a box. And I think there was like a summer when Warzone came out where I did Warzone. But even then, it was like weekly. Like I'll do like weekly stuff as opposed to constantly all the time. So it's like you still are getting, in a way, consistent maybe of this content, but only once a week. So there's still stuff throughout the week that's different. So I'm not just like totally locked into one thing. But yeah, I think just I guess for people who just know yourself, know what if you're going to be burnt out on a game or not. If you're able to be super focused and into one game and just like super good at that, I think it helps if you're like really good or maybe like competitively into a game. That helps keep you focused on that. Yeah. But that was never my intention. I was just like here to have fun and experience, new games and stories together. So.
Yeah, and that comes with, and sometimes that can take, like you had the idea going in, that sometimes that can take time for people, but it honestly at the end of the day is knowing what you're passionate about and like finding those games that work for you, because again, you do eventually, find, your group. Like your group finds you, you find your group. People, find the content they like, and like there is X amount of people, and again, we've talked about the value of time. I have nothing wrong with a viewer who's like, I have X amount of time to watch Twitch. I only want to watch this one game. When you're doing this game, awesome. I love to watch you do this game. But, as much as I like you and you're the preferred person I like to watch this game, when I have time, that's just the game I like to watch. That's fine. I think game viewers, yeah. But like you said, you eventually attract, even kind of early on, you start attracting a core group of people, and then they become, VVMinerva viewers who, no matter what you're doing, are willing to try it. And I think that comes with also just kind of being transparent about like the sort of content you make and things like that. It's just always, it's interesting to hear, because you'll have people who variety stream who get a lot of pressure early on when they're first starting out. And then again, like you mentioned, near partner, people who want to see them succeed, not necessarily, they're not trying to get them locked into a game, but they are also like, they want them to succeed. And you'll see some of this advice, I think, is a little well-intentioned, but not true, kind of about kind of locking yourself into a place, because partner's a really amazing milestone. But if you change, and that's the kind of, there's like two more things to kind of, I wanted to really cover. One is, because you've gone through the process of getting partnered, it's a weird thing where you care about your content and your community and you're growing, and then Twitch is like, everything is about numbers and metrics, and there's a lot of pressure. Just like you log onto the Twitch dashboard and just says, here's numbers that we want to see, and then you get a rejection email. If you get a rejection email, some people, depends on where your content's at, that says do this, and it's almost always numerical. So I just kind of talk about the pressures, because I see a lot of people, and that's why I bring this up on the podcast often, who get into this push for partner mindset, lose sight of their content. Their content kind of comes about the push for partner, which puts the pressure on them and their community. And it's elating when they get it, but then afterwards, it was so much of their content, they're so burnt out. I've seen so many people get partner and kind of just fall off, but they didn't fall off because their content got bad. It's because they were burnt out, and afterwards they didn't know where to go. Whereas it's kind of a milestone. So I'm just curious, because obviously you got partnered, you continued to grow, continued to evolve, how you got through, because that's, I think, one of the two most pressure points I faced as a streamer is kind of transitioning from a 15-20 viewer streamer up to about a 40-50 viewer streamer. And then the second one, the big pressure, because like now my numbers can go up and down all day, and I'm kind of like, okay, I need to watch it, I need to work on my content. But if I have a low day, I don't care. But in this, like, being near partner, all of a sudden you're like, what did I do this day that made my viewership down? Because normally I wouldn't care, but now I have to care.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I tried to, for so long, I think what really helped me initially to just like be more just organic and like comfortable in my own streams was like turning off the viewer count and not focusing on that and not stressing about that. And that was, when things got a lot, more comfortable for me as a streamer. Like I always suggest that to people, especially like new streamers. I'm like, just turn the viewer count on, because it's not about that, and it's going to affect your content. I think in a way, because even if it goes up or down, like it's going to affect you either way.
Right.
But so when you're applying for partner, it's all about the numbers. Like you were saying, Twitch makes that focus about the numbers. And so I had to like worry about that. And, you're constantly checking, your stream reports. I mean, I always look at my stream report, but yeah, it's definitely more of like a focus, the numbers, and try and like worrying about what you're doing differently that makes the numbers drop, like you were saying. And I think because when I initially started getting there was like a steady incline, and then I started playing Bloodborne, and Bloodborne was like a huge surge in viewership for me, I felt, so, which was awesome because I did get a lot of content out of Bloodborne. But then as it was coming to a close, I was like, I'm so close to partner, And I was like, what do I do? Do I play
Right.
Bloodborne again? Do I, keep going and play more Souls games if that's what people want to see? So that was like definitely a decision I had to make, which was kind of hard. But initially, I had obviously planned. I think we were getting into like October at that point. I had already planned that I wanted to play Resident. I wanted to play the first few Resident Evil games. I'm sorry if you can hear my cat, by the way. She's being crazy.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, the first I wanted to play the Resident Evil games, so I really wanted to stick with that, but I was worried that like switching was just gonna make that new growth drop off again. But I just kind of convinced myself that I need to be genuine. I need to like, if this is what I want to do, if this is how I don't want to like. I don't want to like feel like I need to rush into partner, I think was my thing. Like I was close, but I didn't want to like do anything that extra. Like I didn't want to do that push for partner, I guess. I just wanted it to happen as organically as possible. And I just wanted to like kind of keep going with my plan and what I wanted. And then I ended up doing Resident Evil and my viewership actually stayed pretty high. So it worked out in my favor, but it was definitely like something I had to think about.
Yeah,
and it's something I was worried about for sure.
Resident Evil was the first stream of yours I watched, was during when you were playing actually Resident Evil.
Oh yeah? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's what
that was great.
That's what it was really good. But yeah, it's the reason I bring it up is because it partner push, but it happens with outside of when you're getting close to partner. There's this constant war between like, or it can exist in you between like analytics and numbers and growth versus creativity, and it's you like the more important thing is creativity and passion and things like that comes through in the work, but then the numbers are there, like because like you said, turning off viewer count is great. I use my analytics, but my like in an analytical background, like what I'll do is I'll check them weekly, but really what I do is like I was doing a new thing. I started doing my podcast when I first started doing it. Numbers were down, but I didn't look at the numbers every single time I did a podcast. I waited for 12 podcasts. I waited 3 months. Then I looked at like, oh, it's trending. Like, here's the thing I'm passionate about. It's raising. And like, so analytics are very good to a streamer, but the problem is you need to utilize them in a way where you're monitoring growth, and you can't monitor a day-to-day growth because you could try something new and your numbers could be down. It could be because it's new. It also could just be because a lot of people are busy that day.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on in their lives. There's so many circumstances that it might not necessarily have anything to do with what you're doing. It's just like, they might just have things going on that day or whatnot. But yeah, no, that's a really good point about how like growth over time as opposed to just like individual streams, like seeing like, oh, well, my numbers were low yesterday. Like what's going on? Like focusing on that. But when you look at like say the course of the year and you see what a big difference. Like if I compare my numbers like this year to last year at this time, I'm sure there's a huge difference.
Yeah, and I always like to throw that out. You as a content creator, I really admire because again, you add in music. You're willing to add in new things and stick with those things because you're passionate about it. I always like to bring this up also just so people know if you're into content creation, things like that. Like if you are passionate about something, add it into your content. Do not worry about the number side about it because the number side and all of that will come into line as you introduce it because if you just introduce something and then run away from it, you never give it a chance to like flourish as part of your content.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like that was kind of like me with music because like I only do music once a week, right? So most of the time I do gaming, and so only once a week I'm doing music. So I definitely noticed a huge drop off in numbers on those days because like people were like, I didn't follow you for music, I followed you for games, right? So it's but it's something that I just like kind of to like think about it like that, right? That that's why but over time it has grown a little bit, maybe slowly, but it has picked up for the music. But yeah, that's something that I definitely have faced with mixing my content.
And even if it doesn't ever match the gaming, you've added this thing that's a part of your life that you're passionate about. Your core audience enjoys it. And also for you, like I said, as a creator, if we only create the things that numerically do well and not the things that we're passionate or creative about, then we risk I don't think anybody gets into content creation to punch a card 9 to 5,
Yeah.
collect a check and go home. Like, I think this is too hard of a job with too many extra hours to compared to like a 40-hour a week job to do anything shy of what you're passionate about in, or even as a hobby. Like, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not being passionate about it, there's too much mental, emotional time commitments to this to not do what you're going to love about it. Because again, I truly believe it can be hard to get discovered, it can be hard to be found, but if you're doing what you're passionate about and you're being true to yourself, the people who find you are the people who admire that about you, identify with that, and that's better than doing something that might have a bunch of numbers but you don't even maybe like your community.
Yeah.
I know people who had to make a painful switch because they actually didn't like their community because they were not being authentic, but they were growing, so they just kept kind of being this version of themselves for the growth and not for themselves, and it became a hard
Which probably
transition
ends
away
up
from
doing
it.
does more harm, I'm sure, over time, right? When you can't really, you don't feel like you can be yourself anymore because you're living up to this like this idea that your community has of you, right? That is different. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then kind of just winding down, and before we move over to other things, and also for anybody who's an audio listener to this after the fact, you missed out on probably while we were talking there the last 20 minutes of the segment of Kitty Tell stream. So Moon, VVMinerva's Kitty Moon, which Minerva actually has there's an emote for it because the made an appearance. So you missed out on that audio, but I wanted to let you know it's there right now. It's like a black waving furry tentacle in front of Minerva's face. It's wonderful.
My cat is my co-streamer. Yeah. It's just as much her show as it is mine. So yeah, she likes to make herself known. She's like, "Hey, are you talking to your wall again? It's my time to come onto the desk and bother you."
Yeah.
She needs her screen time. I get it.
She's
very cute.
My dogs make me pick them up. They don't know why I'm talking to this rectangle thing in front of me, but they know I'm talking to it, so it's probably important.
yeah, exactly. They're like, I need to be involved. She just loves attention.
The last thing I want to bring up is a kind of an aesthetic thing, because obviously we all decorate our backgrounds to match our personalities, but something we have in common is I see that you still have out your Halloween decorations. I too am a
365
year-round Halloween. Like they're not Halloween decorations, they are my home decorations.
Yes, I love that. I love when when the Halloween decorations come out, I get to just buy stuff for my home year round. I'm like, finally, it's stuff I like for my house at the store. This is great. Yeah, I love definitely have that. We are like, my community is the Dark Legion. You know, we love dark, a lot of things. But yeah, spooky, like ominous. I love horror. I love Halloween. You know, my sense of humor is pretty dark. Just like all around, you know, I dress in black most of the time. We're definitely, everything that really embodies. But yeah, I got lots of. I also really love like medieval, so I love candles. I have like a gargoyle hanging up on my wall over here. But I also just really love like plants and stuff. So it's like a mixture of like forest witch meets Halloween. I don't know. It's just like my style and aesthetic is definitely a hodgepodge of things, of my interests. But yeah,
and it's cool because I think that's another thing about streaming. Obviously you can show your personality through a VTube avatar, or people who don't use a camera and use a green screen. I'm not saying people who do that don't, but for me, I like streaming with a background for that reason, is because there's little things for people to kind of pinpoint and easily go, oh, this is a streamer I want to watch because they have like these little things in the background that I can identify and go, okay, like just like there's a Halloween pumpkin, there's a guitar. Or you don't have your sign turned on right now, but usually have your suck my ass sign on there in the background. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I look for that in other streams as well, like in the background. I like, the vibe and aesthetic is like super important. So when I see that, I'm like, oh, I love, their candles or their lighting or their decor or whatever. Yeah, I see spooky stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna fit in here. We're gonna get along, I think, based on your decor for sure.
I was pressed, despite the fact there's nowhere it would fit. Where I live, I was pressed sitting at Home Depot staring at a $300 12-foot skeleton.
Oh my
Last Halloween,
goodness.
because it was out the Halloween before and it was back last Halloween. I'm like, I don't know where this goes. Like this.
Oh, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Actually, I think I've seen it.
It's you can probably still find pictures of it. They're selling it at Home Depot. It's exactly like my Alan here. It's like my co-host Alan here. Except for it's 12 feet tall. It's like meant to go like in your yard or on top of your house. Well, I don't have a yard or a roof that I could put things on. I'm like, I mean, I guess I could just, he'll block my TV, but maybe I just replace my coffee table with it. Maybe my kitties would use it as a cat tree. I don't know, but I wanted it.
I feel that. I feel that. I love decorating though, so it's actually been really cool having an office and having like a stream background and being able to like fill it with all these things that I like and like create like a my stream background has changed so much as I'm like kind of figuring out how I want it to look and how I want it to be perceived and everything, because that is important. Yeah, like it's kind of like a first impression when someone opens your stream and they see you and they in your background, and that kind of like is supposed to tell a story, give off a vibe in a way.
Yeah, tell a quick story, give a vibe, because you can fill out all the information in your panels below, and there's X amount of people who will go down to panels, but most people are just gonna
not
look at the image and kind of make a 7-second judgment call there. So really appreciate you being on the podcast. We're going to move into the Q&A for anybody who's listening to this on audio format or watching this on YouTube. I released the Q&As with all the different people compiled monthly, so there will be a video and an audio of Q&As with different streamers there. So but for this stream, just I like to do a couple like rapid fires at the end, just kind of as like a little closing thing. So you're a Soulsborne player. You haven't gotten through all the bosses in Elden Rings, but you've gotten through Bloodborne and Sekiro, and you've done a lot of Elden Ring.
I platinum Bloodborne, actually.
You platinum Bloodborne. There
First
you go.
game I ever platinumed.
That's amazing. What is your favorite boss? Not the hardest boss, though that might be why it's your favorite. What's been your favorite like boss encounter in a Soulsborne game?
In a Soulsborne game altogether?
Yes.
Oof. That's a tough one. In Bloodborne, probably Lady Maria. That was really cool fight. Honestly, I love all of Bloodborne's probably my favorite game, so like almost all of the bosses I really enjoyed. Maybe with the exception of a couple. In Elden Ring, I think Elemer of the Briar was a really cool fight. I enjoyed that one a lot. Yeah, and in Sekiro, I think Genichiro was my favorite. I loved the lightning. I don't know if you've seen like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I felt like Iroh redirecting the lightning. I was like, this is so cool. So yeah, honestly, might be Genichiro. Honestly, that was a really fun fight.
It's a good fight.
Yeah.
So
Lady Maria's beautiful. Oh, that's like a dance. I love the fights that are like a nice, like an even, like, I like the fights where I don't like the super big monster fights, although they look really cool. I like when we're kind of, a similar size. It's more of a duel. It's more of a dance when we're fighting.
I actually like that a lot. In my From Software, my Soulsborne fights as well. I think that's what I like the most about, I guess I'll keep it spoiler free. The hardest fight in Elden Ring, according to everybody, I think what I like the most about that fight is she is just it's a multi-phase fight that's a dance, and it's also just technically it's a hard fight, but it's also just technically a fun fight because you are kind of interweaving with them. I think it's a great fight. I
think I know what fight you're talking about. I've heard a lot about her.
Okay. I was trying to keep I don't know. Game's been out a while, so probably have heard, but I try to keep it as spoiler free as I.
No, that was great. Yeah, that was great. No worries at all.
You mentioned Incubus kind of being like what you would sing. What are your like 3 go-to karaoke songs if you go out to karaoke?
I really love I guess probably Pardon Me is a good one. Wish You Were Here. Like those are like my go-to like Incubus songs probably to sing that they usually have for karaoke. And then maybe I would definitely say like I hate everything about you by 3 Days Grace. I usually sing those ones. In my memory, those are the ones that like come to me.
Yeah, good songs. I'm sad that I started streaming after Twitch Sings was the thing, because they used to have a whole karaoke platform on here that's gone now.
Yes, Twitch Sings was a lot of fun actually.
Yeah.
That was probably my first foray into music streams.
Yeah, I was gonna do it, and then right around this time I was like gonna start doing it. They're like, next month, Twitch Sings is
so sad.
at the start of the year. Twitch Sings is dead. I'm like, well, I guess we'll just put a pin in that. And then one more just quick rapid fire question. I have a couple food ones we ask.
Okay.
Is a Pop-Tart a ravioli?
No.
No, that's fair. This is
No. I just I mean, you know what? I could be definitely persuaded on the argument that it is a ravioli, but
it's construction versus
more of like
type
a
of food.
Danish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you go ahead and let people know your schedule? For people who are listening on audio, you'll find links and stuff to all of Minerva's Twitch, Instagram, and stuff like that in the description. But go ahead and just kind of like say what you got coming up and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and thank you so much for having me on. This was a lot of fun. But I stream full time. I stream Sundays, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. It's pretty much the whole weekend. And every Friday is my music stream, if that's what you're interested in. And I take requests, which is fun. So yeah, hit me up on Twitch for sure. And follow my YouTube if that's going to be probably my next outlet for getting into more content is going to be YouTube related videos and more music. Music is definitely going to be more of my focus going forward. So yeah, I guess those are the best places to come hang out and get to know me.
And if you want to check out VVMinerva and they happen not to be live on Twitch, definitely check out their YouTube already. They do have monthly highlights there, so you can get kind of a really nice like quick crash course in what that stream will be like. So thank you again for being on.